All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Wednesday, April 10th. We got a decent-sized MLB slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do when we go through each and every one of these games, I'll give you my lean on the side. I'll give you my lean on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, if you do want to fade me and do the opposite of all my picks, all of my plays will be listed out in the pinned comment. So what I'm actually rolling with, my final plays will be in the pinned comment. Yesterday, it looks like we had a lot of plays yesterday. It looks like there's more green than there's red, and there is more green. We had 6 wins, 5 losses, and a push. The problem here is it was an overall red night because we had a full unit on George Kirby over 4.5 strikeouts. Man, that first 2 innings, I think he had 3 strikeouts. He looked good, and then Toronto started to just absolutely get to him in innings 3 and 4, and we couldn't get that job done. The Pirates' money line, they were up 3-1 in the 9th, and yeah, they blow that one. So it was a negative night overall, even though it kind of looks pretty with more green than red. There's still a decent amount of red on there, but yeah, you know what? We've been hot for the last 3 days or so. We had a mediocre night last night. We can't cry about it. In terms of our daily dinger, shout out to Miss Queen here calling Tyler O'Neill. Tyler O'Neill is absolutely going off. If you don't know what the daily dinger is, it's just a way to be potentially shouted out on the channel on the next video. All you got to use is hashtag daily dinger in the comments before the game start and list a player you think is going to hit a home run. And then come tomorrow's video, if anyone got it correctly, I'll pick one person at random and give them a shout out, just like Miss Queen today. So make sure to go ahead and use that hashtag Daily Dinger in the comments. Let's go ahead and jump into this game, guys, or these games. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're starting off with Minnesota taking on the Dodgers here. So Bobby Miller on the mound for the Dodgers going up against Chris Paddock, who I do think that I would give the nod to Bobby Miller. He didn't look all that great in his last start. An inning and 2/3 pitched, 5 earned runs, let up a home run, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks against Chicago. But Chicago is obviously a decent offense as of right now. LA is honestly kind of dominating the series, 4-2 in game 1 of the series, 6-3 in game number 2. They have a day off after this as well. So I do think that this could be a nice little spot where LA wins, kind of gets out of town, heads back to California to play San Diego in San Diego. So I do think that I like LA in this spot. I'm not going to trust Chris Paddock all that much. Only 1 start on the year, 4 innings pitched, 2 earned run, 2 Ks, 2 strikeouts, 1 home run. So it's not like he was terrible. Like his numbers may look terrible, sitting at a ERA of, I want to say, like just under 5. But nonetheless, if you look at it from an ERA perspective, Bobby Miller's ERA is even worse at a 5.8. So we can't really put too much weight into that if I'm going to go ahead and say that the Dodgers have the pitching edge. But they do. I mean, the whips, Bobby Miller right now, 1.17 whip with a 2.45 FIP. Like, we like those numbers. So I think that they have a slight pitching edge. And when it comes to batting, they have an absolute edge. Like, I don't think it's really irrefutable or refutable. Dodgers here, 3rd best average against right-handed pitchers. Chris Paddock, righty. 2nd best WRC plus, 2nd best OPS, 5th best on-base percentage, top 10 team in terms of walk rate. The only place that they're going to struggle, and we can flash up the MLB dashboard here, the only place that they're going to struggle is with the strikeouts. So Paddock, not necessarily a big strikeout guy, 11.1% on the season, so I guess correlation-wise, that's okay to see the red there. But look in Minnesota, all of this red. Worst average, worst WRC plus, worst OPS, worst on-base percentage in the entire league against right-handed pitchers. This should be a decent spot for Bobby Miller to be able to bounce back here. And by the way, guys, everything you're seeing on this screen here is going to be available to you. I'll put a link in the pinned comment. We've built out a dashboard. We're constantly adding to it, but you can see at the bottom here, we have game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4, everything for every game on the slate, on this game slate tab with the pitcher listed, his hand, as well as the home spread and the total. But yeah, really, really cool stuff. You can see bullpen numbers, and this will be all updated for you guys Monday through Friday. You can see starting pitching number, bullpen numbers, and batting versus hand. Again, this is going to be in the pinned comment. As of right now, free to everyone. I'm thinking a week or so we'll make it exclusive to the members on the channel, but go ahead and try it out for at least the rest of the week. This stuff is absolutely crucial. All the key numbers are in here right now, and we're constantly adding more and more. I'm doing it myself, so it's taking a little bit of time, but go check it out, guys. That link is in the pinned comment. It's just a free Google Sheet stock. You can't edit it or anything, but if you wanted to mess around with it, you could download it and edit it on your own file. But I think the overall way that we're going to play this game is probably trusting Miller over Paddock and the offense, the Dodgers offense over Minnesota for the first 5 innings. Right now, it's a huge sort of number to take. Minus 180 on the entire money line, which the Dodgers, their bullpen should be good to go. Minnesota's a little taxed. Minnesota has a better bullpen than the Dodgers as of right now. So I think taking them on the first 5 is going to be the move. We might go first 5 run line, which would be minus 0.5, meaning they can't tie. That's only minus 120. So that may be the best way to get some value out of the Dodgers bats today. In terms of a total here, sitting at 8.5, I don't really have much of a play on it. I think if you can get it at 9, I might take the under. Again, this is sort of a getaway day in a sense, so they could try and go, all right, let's get through this game and let's pack up and not necessarily go balls to the wall for the full game. So I think I lean slightly towards the under, but my main play is probably going to be Dodgers minus 0.5 in the first 5. Next up, we got St. Louis taking on Philadelphia here. We had the Phillies through the first 5 yesterday. That does not come through. They lose the game outright, 3-0. On the mound here for the Phillies is going to be Aaron Nola, who I guess you could say has had a mass start to the season. Had a good start, but it was against Washington last time out. And then in his first start of the year, he got shelled, but it was by Atlanta, so somewhat excusable, right? On the mound for St. Louis, kind of the flip side here. We have Lance Lynn, who looked good in his opening day start against the Dodgers, weirdly enough. 4 scoreless innings, then obviously the rain delay. Going up against the Marlins in his second start, and he got kind of shelled by them, so it's kind of like, what's going on here? Though Nola's numbers in his last game looked good, and his first numbers didn't look all that great, I do think that I would trust him over Lance Lynn, just overall. So I am going to lean towards, a pitching edge for Philadelphia. And then when it comes to the bats, I just think that Philly comes alive at some point. Not that they've had much success against Lance Lynn. This current Phillies roster in 106 plate appearances, only sitting at a 231 average, 28% K rate, 300 WOBA. Like, that doesn't look great, but I do have to trust them to come alive at some point. You flip over to Aaron Nola, and in 111 plate appearances from this Cardinals roster against, his numbers are actually better. So it's okay that, even if you want to fade Phillies bats, I think trusting Aaron Nola in this spot could be good. He's got a 192 average against 208 WOBA, an expected batting average of 193, only a 259 slugging, and a 26.1% K rate and a 5.4% walk rate. So I think that there's enough evidence here, both, me theoretically trusting Phillies bats and seeing the data from Nola that they have a little bit of an edge in this spot. So I like Philly here to at least pull this one out. Again, yesterday's game, they lose. Game number 1, they also lost. This Philly team, not off to the hottest start of the season, 5-6 on the year, but give me them on the money line today. In terms of the total, I'm going to lean towards the under. It may be a first under spot for us. For a money line, I'm going Philly all day long for the full game because St. Louis's bullpen is taxed. So I do think that that's obviously a nice little spot for them. They do technically have the better bullpen than Philadelphia, but not with what's available today. But for a total, I may consider looking at the first 5 under, trusting these pitchers and the numbers, the low numbers that I just read off to you guys. All right, Toronto taking on Seattle. Toronto's taken games 1 and 2, and honestly, I don't want to say dominated, but definitely has had the upper hand throughout the majority of these innings here, these 2 games. On the mound for Toronto today is going to be Kikichi going up against Logan Gilbert. Kikichi, 2.79 ERA on the season, looking pretty good, but his whip's at 1.55. You look at Logan Gilbert, decent to start the year here, 3.55 ERA with a 0.87 whip. Played against Boston and then played against Milwaukee. So Milwaukee start didn't look as great, but still decent. And then Kikichi, like I said, kind of middle of the road, definitely allowing guys to hit him through 1 start so far, right? He had 6 hits against Tampa Bay here. In terms of where the pitching edge is in my mind, listen, I think Kikichi may have better stuff, but just based on their 2 starts, again, 6 hits allowed for Kikichi in his first start, and then when he played, was it the Yankees, 4 or 5 hits allowed. He's definitely letting guys get on base, so I'm kind of thinking that comes back to bite them in this spot. So I'm going to give a slight pitching edge to Logan Gilbert. And even if we look at the dashboard here, you can see there is a hell of a lot more green on Gilbert's side when we look at his whip, his K rate, his walk rate as well. Not that Seattle's drawing many walks against left-handed pitchers, but Kikichi walking 12% of batters is not necessarily something you'd love to see. From a batting perspective, you'd think looking at this series that Toronto should have the edge, right? Like almost for sure should have the edge. But if you look at the numbers, now we have a left-handed pitcher on the mound for Seattle. They faced Kirby and Castillo, right? Two righties. Now there's a lefty, and things get a little bit better for Seattle. If we switch just to right-handed pitcher, look at all that red. That is what we've seen from Seattle in this series so far. It's a lefty today. They kind of jump a little bit, not crazily, but from being bottom of the barrel to middle of the barrel. So I think that I'm going to lean towards Seattle in this spot. You can see their bullpen numbers looking a little bit better too. Both bullpens decent whip, so we'll give credit there where it's due. But yeah, give me Seattle in this spot. We'll take the underdog. Do I think that makes its way into a final play? Honestly, it's got a decent chance. From a total perspective here, we've been just leaning towards the under constantly in this series, and I do think that that's still going to be the move. We have two good pitchers on the mound, Kikichi and Logan Gilbert, with decent numbers against the current rosters here. So I think I'm going to lean towards the under 8 as well in this spot. All right, Colorado taking on Arizona here in Colorado. Colorado took game number 1 of the series 7-5, and then yesterday, a little battle between Kelly and Quantrill ends in a 3-2 win for Arizona. That 3-2 win was good enough to cash our Arizona team total over 1.5, but now that's up at 2.5 today. Which isn't exactly what I'd like to see. So I don't really know how to play this one as of right now, just due to the fact that you have actually 2.5 yesterday for Arizona, right? Their team total's up to 3.5 through the first 5 today, so it's definitely up there. And what I mean by I don't know how to play this one today, the odds really just don't seem to align with what I was thinking for this. -140 for Arizona seems like a trap to me, so it is something that I've considered, but maybe I stay away from it because this Arizona team through 2 games now, right, has been -170 and then -179, and all of a sudden they come in at -140. I know you have Tommy Henry on the mound, who really hasn't been all that great, but his numbers against this current Colorado roster, not all that terrible. 271 average, expected batting average of 237, 9.2% K rate, launch angle at 8%, so he's not going to let, or 8 degrees, so it's not like he's going to let up a bunch of dingers in this altitude. And he's going up against Austin Gomber, who his numbers against this Diamondbacks roster kind of stink. Only 11% K rate, 388 average, a slugging of 475, WOBA of 504 here. So to me, it's like, yeah, this reads Arizona all day long. I don't care about the pitching. When we look at the batting, Arizona against left-handed pitchers should crush Gomber, right? So to me, like I said, I'm a little worried. I'm going to lean Arizona for sure. I almost might make it a final play because am I just overthinking it? But they're the far and away the better team. To get them at -140 today seems like somewhat of a steal. So I'll lean in that direction. When it comes to the total, again, I think that, this is obviously we have the altitude and all of that, but you got to trust Colorado's bats at some point. I know they put up a bunch of runs in game number 1, but yesterday was a little bit more of what I'd expect, and they do not hit lefties, tremendously. 22nd in WRC plus here, and on base percentage, bottom 10 as well. So I'll lean slightly towards the under. All right, guys, before we jump into the rest of the plays and rest of the games, I do want to shout out OddsJam. I know you've heard me talk about it before, but why not talk about it again? Because if you're not using OddsJam, you are missing out on plenty of tools that can help you become a more profitable sports bettor. You can use the link in the pinned comment. You will get 7 days free. You use code GUYBOSS when signing up. You'll get 25% off your first month. What this is the positive EV screen. You can see how many plays are out there right now. What this does is identifies missed price lines in the market. For example, this Shohei Ohtani over 1.5 hits, right? Plus 175 over on FanDuel. If we open this up, you'll see it's actually a plus 142 play on most sportsbooks. Caesars plus 136, ESPN Bet plus 135, DraftKings plus 140, BetMGM plus 140. You can literally get this on at FanDuel at plus 175. Does it guarantee that it hits? No, but you can assure you're getting the best price out there and tremendous value. In fact, there's plenty of times that you'll find ones that are like plus 135 or something like that, and they're minus 115 on a bunch of sports books out there as well. Like, this might be a decent one. Chris Paddock, minus 104. It's actually up near minus 130 play in the market right now. So FanDuel has that mispriced. Guys, go check out OddsJam. Again, that link is in the pinned comment. Make sure you use code GUYBOSTON. That's how you get the deal. Now let's go ahead and jump into the rest of these games. Next up, we have San Francisco taking on Washington. This has been a Washington team that's kind of impressed me the last few games, and honestly, in the first 2 games of this series, they've won 8-1 and then 5-3. I would lean them again today. I don't know if I can get there just because, like, of the sweep, right? Like, I'm a big believer in how hard it is to sweep teams, but to be completely honest, like, if I didn't know that they are on the verge of sweeping what you could consider as maybe a better team than them, I would be Washington all day. So yeah, it's going to be a lean of mine. I don't know if I can get there and actually place the bet, but against right-handed pitchers, they're top 10 in virtually every offensive category to start the year. They've got a better bullpen seemingly than San Francisco here in this spot. They do have a pitcher that hasn't necessarily had, I guess you could say, the best start to the season. Patrick Corbin here against Cincinnati. 7 hits through 4 1/3, 4 earned runs. Against the Phillies, 9 hits through 6 innings, 4 earned runs. Did have 6 strikeouts, though, so that could be where their weakness lies today, going up against Jordan Hicks, who has looked pretty good to start the year. Both starts against San Diego, so I guess you could say maybe he just pitches well against that team. But nonetheless, I do still think that this could be a spot where the pitching kind of dominates this game. But like I just mentioned, that bullpen really not looking good for San Francisco. Washington, they do have tired arms in their bullpen, so maybe their bullpen advantage goes away. Don't worry, I'm still leaning towards Washington, but I'm kind of just giving you the information to make your own play here, because I don't think that I get to the window and place Washington money line, because I just don't believe that they sweep them. If they do, great, and I'm glad I lean that way, but I just can't see myself being able to pull the trigger on it. And it's unfortunate because for plus 175 odds, seems like it could be a good spot. But again, that sweep is just in my head. And Washington, I don't believe, is the better team. I believe they're just playing better baseball. From a total perspective here, we're looking at 8. We haven't really seen much out of the San Francisco offense in this series, right? Like I said, 1 run and then 3 run. In fact, they're averaging under 4 runs per game this season. But I do think that this could be sort of a good spot for them. I already mentioned Patrick Corbin's been kind of getting tagged up a little bit. Well, in his 116 plate appearances for this Giants roster against him, 306 average, 381 WOBA, an expected WOBA of 396, an expected slugging of 600, and an expected batting of batting average of 303. I think that this one goes up and over today. In fact, the way that we could play this while still giving San Francisco their credit and maybe thinking Washington wins is potentially looking at San Francisco's over in runs for their team total. Because like I said, there's a lane for San Francisco, but batting wise overall, this should be a good spot for the Nationals. But if it comes down to pitching, I think San Francisco has the edge. So that's probably as confusing as hell for all you guys, because even I'm back and forth, right? But yeah, keep an eye on the pinned comment to see if we roll with anything here. It's just confusing game to me, to be completely honest, because of the sweep. In fact, if you just watch that sort of tennis match of my brain going back and forth with the other part of my brain, comment sweep in the comments, because I know that you just witnessed absolute confusion. All right, next up, we have the Angels taking on Tampa Bay. This one worked out for us yesterday. If we pull up our recap, you can see we definitely had this game pegged pretty well. Those last 3 lines of our recap were all Rays all the way. First 5 spread, first 5 money line, and then money line overall. So hopefully we can carry that momentum into this game. On the mound is going to be Jose Soriano for the Angels, and then we have Lytle on the mound for Tampa Bay, who has definitely failed us at times over the last couple of years here, if we're being completely honest, right? We don't have any data so far for Soriano from a starting perspective. Lytle has looked good, but like I said, he's definitely failed us at times this year. But so far, through his, 2 starts, he's looked pretty good. So I don't mind the spot for Tampa Bay today. The one thing I'll say, after last night, their bullpen is super, super taxed, and it's not necessarily the best bullpen in the bigs right now either. So this is probably going to be a Tampa Bay first five, either minus 0.5 or first five money line. And I got the question in the comments yesterday: what's the difference between first five money line and first five run line, which is first five minus 0.5 on some occasions? First five run line would essentially be you have to be leading, minus 0.5, right? You have to be winning after first five. If you take first five money line and they're tied, your bet gets voided and it's a push. So there is, the push potential where you don't necessarily lose money. So there is a difference between those two plays. Usually when I do it, I'll just split a unit between the two because you get better odds for that 0.5, but safer play is that money line. So probably something similar we can do here again. I think this is a Tampa Bay offense that's ready to hit. Batting, against righties, they're top 10 in everything but walks and strikeouts. But OPS, WRC plus average should look okay here for them. But give me them on the first five. I don't want to get involved with the 6, 7, 8, 9 innings here. So first five is going to be my move here in this spot. I'd also consider, I guess, taking a peek at the under total game, just due to the fact that I think that this is also another getaway spot where after this, the Angels have to pack up and head over to Boston cross country. So maybe this is another spot where they're like, all right, let's get through this quickly. Tampa Bay not really having to worry about that. They're going to San Francisco after this. I think they're actually at home, so they probably, if that's true, they have to fly all the way across. So I think that unders could be a good spot for that type of thing. Now, from a player prop perspective, I like the spot here for Brandon Drury under 1.5 player bases. If you don't want to pay the juice right now, it's minus 140 on Fanatics. I don't mind his under hits, runs, and RBIs either, to be completely honest. But he's only done that twice this season. Did it last game. I don't expect him to do it 2 games in a row. Going up against Lytle, who he's had some good hitting against, but overall this should be a spot in which he bats righties a little bit worse. And the slider is not his pitch. Lytle relies on sliders. Brandon Drury, his K percentage jumps about 8 points when he faces a slider here, and his WOBA drops all the way down to 300. So I'm trusting that pitch is going to be sort of his get-out pitch. Cleveland taking on I almost said Cleveland taking on the Guardians. Cleveland taking on the White Sox here. This isn't a game that I'm all that much thrilled with. Bibee on the mound for Cleveland, going up against pitching for the White Sox is going to be Eric Fede, Fade me, whatever you want to call him. But again, this isn't a spot that I'm over the moon with looking at here. Fede actually looked okay in his second start of the year, but in his first start of the year, I thought he was meh. That was kind of before we knew what Detroit was capable offensively. Tanner Bibee looked good in his last start against Minnesota, but we know Minnesota just cannot hit righties. So do we give him credit for that? Either way, I can't get to the number of minus 235 with Cleveland, especially after the White Sox have a 7-5 win yesterday. And I would have been leaning under all throughout this series, but now that I just saw a 7-5 win for the White Sox, I'm like, are those bats heating up? Like, is that really what's happening right now? I don't think so. So I still lean towards the under game, for the full game, because I do trust this Cleveland bullpen, and they should be fairly rested. Like, most of their guys have pitched, but even Hunter Gaddis, 12 pitches yesterday. He has pitched 2 days in a row, so maybe he's someone that is probably potentially going to not throw today because maybe they don't care that much about this game. But overall, I'll still lean towards the under, but I don't think anything becomes a final play in this game. I don't want to bet White Sox, I'll tell you that much, for free, which I tell you everything for free. But the Cleveland number is just a little bit too high here. In terms of a positive EV play, like I was talking about, finding one over on OddsJam here, Brian Rocchio for plus 160, under 0.5 hits over on Fanatics, plus 160. It's actually a plus 130 play on most sportsbooks. So if we can get to the window with that odds and those odds and that number, I think that we might be able to pull the trigger on that. All right, next up, San Diego taking on the Cubs. Cubs definitely playing some baseball here to start the year, but you can say this exact same thing about San Diego, right? And on the mound for San Diego is Dylan Cease, so I got a soft spot for, going up against Kyle Hendricks. But San Diego here, in terms of, I guess, what we've looked at in this series so far, or just in the season overall, like, they've played good baseball. sometimes the ball hasn't bounced away, right? Whereas the Cubs just kind of rolling right now, 7-3 in their last 10, 7-4 on the season. But I like San Diego today because of the pitching matchup. They lose yesterday 5-1, but we saw them be able to come back in game number 1. So they do have some grit and sort of like, we can do this against the Cubs mentality, right? And again, like the easiest way that I can look at this is flashing over to the dashboard here, the MLB dashboard, and just look at Kyle Hendricks. Red. Guys, red isn't good. Green is good. So cease on the season, all green. Red here for Kyle Hendricks. And to me, yes, you have green all day long for the Cubs, right? In the batting category. This is not necessarily like you look at I guess where San Diego ranks versus right-handed pitchers. Like, it's not red, it's yellowish orange. Like, this pitching over here is more of a discrepancy than this to me. Now, does Chicago come out and put a bunch of runs up? Maybe. Their offense has been really good to start the year. Like, I'm not telling you that's not possible, but I think I'm going to lean towards the Padres in this spot here, just overall, due to that fact that I think that, they have such a pitching advantage here in his few starts this season. So Kyle Hendricks, opening day against Texas. All right. Tough draw, right? 9 hits, 5 earned runs, let up 2 home runs, and then he goes up against the Dodgers. 8 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 home run. So I get it if your argument is, look at the teams he's had to play. But to me, it's like Dylan Cease had to go up against San Francisco twice, which, yeah, their offense has been hit or miss, but it's not like he played a couple cupcake teams. Like, he's looked pretty good too. So maybe you can say I'm a psycho there because I'm fading Hendricks based on 2 games against 2 of the best offenses in the league. I understand that, but to me, I'm trusting Cease over Hendricks all day long today, regardless. From a total perspective now, I guess this is where I can give the potential of, full game runs or the Cubs having 9 runs to score. This is where I don't necessarily back Cease. I'm going to lean towards a full game over here. Yes, we saw, a 5-1 game yesterday. That wasn't all that great, but 9-8 in game number 1. The Chicago offense is good. I'm hoping San Diego can get to Hendricks and then, give him 9 innings and the Cubs should be able to put up, what they've been averaging, right around 5 to 6 runs. So give me the over in this spot as well. All right, we got Cincinnati taking on Milwaukee in this one. Good series, though, so far. Very high scoring. 10-8 win for Cincinnati in game number 1. 9-5 win for Milwaukee in game number 2 here. On the mound for Milwaukee is going to be Wade Miley, who we have not seen this year. Did close out the year well last year, going up against Hunter Green, who I would say has looked decent so far to start the year. I don't think, we just talked about kind of like strength of teams you're going up against. He faced the Washington, I almost said Washington Wizards. I got an NBA brain out of here. He's faced Washington, then he faced the Mets, kind of, I guess you could say before the Mets started to look, capable. So I don't know necessarily what weight to put into Hunter Green here in this spot. In 25 plate appearances versus guys that are on this current Milwaukee roster, 250 average, but the expected slugging at 724, launch angle 26 degrees with exit velo of 91. So I do think the Braves hitting should be able to get to him today. They have been batting really well against right-handed pitchers. It's just a matter, is Wade Miley good to go? Is he all set? Like, we haven't really seen much, right? So unfortunately, I don't have a strong lean here, but I could see myself, talking myself into Milwaukee later on in the day because of their offense. But Green, like I said, has he pitched well, or has he had 2 sort of easy starts against 2 teams that don't hit lefties all that well? I'm not necessarily sure, but I'll trust the bats at least. That's a little bit more constant to me. So give me Milwaukee here on the money line. I'd also potentially consider them on the first 5, just due to the fact that they could be a little taxed in the bullpen. They should be good, but Cincinnati's bullpen's fresh. But even when Cincinnati's bullpen is fresh, they're terrible, right? So this is most likely a full game play for me. And then I think it'd be silly to not lean towards the over based on what we've seen so far for these couple teams. In terms of a player prop here, give me Jaime Candelario under 1.5 bases. Right now you can get that for -140 over on Fanatics. I wouldn't play that past probably -145, -150. I think it's going to get juiced throughout the day because this guy started the season pretty damn hot. He's definitely cooling off now. And Wade Miley against right-handed batters, or switch hitters, so he's going to be a right-handed batter, right? actually fares pretty well. 2.73 ERA, batting average against is 212, slugging 313, and he throws a cutter, which should be a spot in which, he doesn't necessarily let up a bunch of bombs or anything like that. So I think this is going to be a decent spot for Candelario to struggle, maybe to have one base, something like that. But again, I like the spot against Wade Miley. All right, should be a pretty easy one here. You have the Yankees taking on Miami. Yankees starting Stroman, Miami starting Weathers, who is just abysmal in my brain. We cashed with him on his walk line. What was it? A couple when in his other start, however long ago it was. His walk number is at 3.5 now, so they've bumped that thing way up there, which is definitely understandable. But the question is, yes, we can fade Miami, we can fade Weathers. Can we really get to a Yankees -1.5? Because that's essentially what we'd be looking at, right? I don't think that we're looking at Yankees on the money line at -215 unless you're throwing it in some sort of a parlay. But right now, man, I think this would have to be 1.5, which wouldn't have worked yesterday. They win 3-2. Is it a little worrisome? Potentially. I think if you wanted to play this and pay still juiced play, but play it at a number that makes the most sense, maybe Yankees first 5 at -0.5, so the run line at -140 on DraftKings. I could see that being a move if you really wanted to force Yankees today, which they should. On paper, better offense, better bullpen, way better starter. This should be Yankees all day long. And this kind of is outside of that. It's hard to sweep a team. It's no, this is the Marlins, who have 1 win on the season. So I don't really hate the idea of trying to force New York today, to be completely honest. From a total perspective, I think the Yankees bats get it done, but I don't know if the Marlins, have that much success against Stroman or anything. So I'm going to lean towards the under 8.5 here. All right, Boston taking on Baltimore. The Red Sox have been impressive to start the year. We did lean Baltimore yesterday, and Baltimore wins 7-1. I do think the Baltimore Orioles are a better team than the Red Sox, which shouldn't be groundbreaking, but the Red Sox have been playing well. Unfortunate news, Trevor Story looks like he's out for a year, which is great. But on the mound here for the Sox is going to be Cutter Crawford, who's looked nothing but really perfect through his first couple starts here, going up against Cole Irvin, who you could say the exact opposite about. I do think he had to, Arizona and actually, no, only was it Kansas City, and I can't remember if he had, let me see, hold on. Cole Irvin here on the year, it was okay, so only one start. I was right. I was trying to place the next start. But against Kansas City, 7 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts just through 5 innings. This is a Red Sox offense, though, that has struggled against left-handed pitchers to start the year. So a lot of this success that they've had and all that, much to come to righties. So I'm going to lean Baltimore again today. It's funny that they're actually underdogs in this spot. So I think that there's some value there at -105 over on DK. From a total perspective, I don't have much of a lean here. Cutter Crawford's been good, so maybe I'll trust him to suppress that offense a little bit. But I do think that, the Red Sox are going to struggle, as weird as it is to say, against Irvin. So I'm gonna lean towards the under, but I think Baltimore pulls this one out. From a player prop perspective, I'm looking at a plus money play over on Fanatics. Fanatics has a lot of value this morning. Ryan O'Hearn over 1.5 player bases for +110. This is another EV play that we just found on the market, -120 on most books. So we have a plus money play that's actually favored to hit -120 on all other books on average. So I think that that's a good spot here. In terms of what he's going to be looking at, it's going to be fastball, cutter, and slider coming in from Cutter Crawford, no pun intended. To start the year, 300 average against the fastball. The cutter hasn't seen much of yet. The slider batting 500. Even if he does go and get, a curveball, which would be the 4th pitch here, he's batting the curveball really well this season. So I think that he could get either a couple hits or an extra base hit today for sure. And right as we were about to move on to the next game, another one popped up on that plus EV screen. Adley Rutschman over 1.5 bases for +100. That's -125 on most books. So another EV play. A lot of expected value in this Red Sox game. All right, Atlanta taking on New York. The New York Mets here. Quintana on the mound for the Mets, going up against Allen Winans. Let's see if he is a win in this one. That's tough. But anyways, we don't have any this year's data for win-ins here, and he hasn't honestly looked all that great in his recent starts, what we just last saw from him in September of last year. So I don't really know where to peg him. Atlanta is pretty juiced in terms of being favorites here. I think that they have a chance of getting to Quintana, but they haven't really had the track record against lefties this year. So I'm almost just trusting how good that offense is, not the numbers, which isn't always the move, you know what I mean? So I'll lean Atlanta because I think you're getting decent odds for minus 156, but we're backing a guy that we don't really have data against, and this is a Mets team that, you know, as much as you want to say that, you know, well, Atlanta has looked good and all that, like the Mets, their last few games here, 6 runs, 3 runs, fine, a little bit lower, 8 runs, 5 runs, like the offense has been there. So I could see someone getting to the Mets side of things. I just can't get there. And like I've been saying, no matter who's pitching or anything like that, like I think if the Braves are playing, it's an automatic no under spot for me. So I'm going to lean towards the over. All right, so this one's a little weird. We have Kansas City taking on Houston. Some sites say that Hunter Brown is the expected starter, so I'm not necessarily sure if it's him or if it's Spencer Arrighetti. So I've seen multiple sites saying multiple things. I've seen more Arrighetti than I have Brown, so I guess we can trust that that's who's on the mound for them today. But we do know that Seth Lugo should be going for Kansas City here. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on that pitching matchup there. Both of them are righties, both Brown and Arrighetti. So, no matter who's getting that start, I think we can still look at Kansas City versus a righty and have some sort of an idea here overall. So, my lean in this one is actually going to be taking a peek at the underdog here, Kansas City. I may consider them, I guess, on a first 5 basis because their starter went yesterday and they come back and their closer went yesterday through 25 pitches in a win, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right? And I do think that this is a Houston roster that's also taxed in the bullpen, but just overall, like, let's make it clean. Let's look at Lugo versus, you know, SpaghettiOs over here and potentially, you know, have an edge there. So I think this is probably and most likely a first 5 play. Right now, money line full game, plus 105 over on FanDuel. If you look at it from a first 5 perspective, you're looking at Kansas City plus 100 odds on DraftKings. So still getting plus money, but you do have value in the full game, which that kind of tells you that, you know, it's less of a chance to hit full game because of the odds, right? But overall, I do think that this is a good Seth Lugo spot. In his starts against the Astros, I almost want to close my eyes and not look at it because he hasn't looked very good. But in terms of how he's been pitching this year, 0.71 ERA with a 1.03 whip, 3.08 FIP, you know, low on the base on ball percentage here, and his strikeout rate not as high as we'd like it to be, but this isn't a Houston team that strikes out anyway, so I don't even know if he had a high strikeout rate, if that would be any sort of like an edge or something that we'd be looking at in the first place. So I do think that I like Kansas City. Do I think Houston is a tough team to bounce back against and everything like that? Like, yeah, no kidding. This team is absolutely capable of just putting up big numbers and big runs in a random inning out of nowhere, you know what I mean? So take it or leave it. I am going to lean towards Kansas City for the plus money in this spot. A player prop before we get to the total that I'm liking is going to be Yandy Diaz here, under 1.5 bases. The problem is he does bat he does bat righties better than he does lefties, so a little bit of concern there. But he doesn't necessarily have the stats to go along with what we'd see against so far in his career against Lugo. So he looks like he has just about, where is it? I just had it up. A 17.4% K rate. Okay, that's not terrible. Batting average 260. Like, I think we have some decent value here to be able to snag him at minus 105 overall. I think that there's definitely more of a or less of a 50-50 chance that he gets those 2 bases. So give me him. And then in terms of a total, I'm going to lean towards the over just because, you know, it's 9 runs set there for a reason. We've seen these two teams' offenses kind of like on the brink of sort of breaking out, and Houston, they really like will have these big, I guess you could say, big 1-inning runs, and then all of a sudden it's like they cool off for the rest of the game. At some point, they'll probably put together a few innings of scoring. All right, Texas taking on Oakland. This Oakland team kind of surprising me as of late. So they've won 3 games in a row. They've beat Detroit. They took 2 of 3 against them. And then they come back and beat Texas yesterday. Texas was one of our losses. We had their over 2.5 in the first 5 for their team total. They finished at, I think it was 2 runs, right? I think they bounce back today. On the mound for them is going to be Cody Bradford. We can look at this. Start the year, he's got a 6.4 innings pitched. So he's pitching deep-ish into games. ERA looks good as well at 2.13, whip at 0.47, the FIP at 2.9, strikeout rate at almost 23%, and his base on ball rate at 2.3%. And this is where, you know, a lot of green over here for both pitchers, but this is where it gets pretty, like, noticeable, is that Texas offensively should have a field day here. But that being said, they should have had a field day in game number 1 in this spot as well, right? I think if we were to roll with Texas, though, it might be in the first 5 because their 2 best setup men and their closer all went yesterday and should probably be either sitting today or, you know, not necessarily getting too much run. So I could see this being a first 5 play for us. I'm trying to pull up the odds as we speak here because Texas already at minus 184 on the money line seems like it's a decent, you know, too much juice to be paying, right? They're still minus 184 in the first 5, so maybe you consider them as the run line as well. Like I said, 0.5 brings you down to minus 130. Maybe that's the move there. But I fully expect them to bounce back today and be able to hit, you know, Ross Stripling decently. In terms of a full game total, I'm going to lean towards the over. We didn't really see an over game from them yesterday, but again, Oakland's bullpen's kind of taxed. Texas's bullpen's kind of taxed. Like if this game gets through the starters with a few runs, I think the bullpen could definitely let up a few more here. And no player props that I'm looking at in this game. But guys, that's going to wrap for today's show. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. We've been having a blast with MLB. We had an amazing NBA night last night. We haven't recorded that. We're about to record that after we record this. But yeah, loving all of the sport as of late. I know I keep saying at the end of videos, but hopefully you guys know that I'm coming from a genuine place of like disbelief of the position that the channel's in and how amazing you guys have been in terms of tuning in every day. So with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. All right, peace out.